Objects at that time were translucent, held in suspension. The street lamps shed a faint light into the room. Light is the natural agent that stimulates sight and makes things visible. We slit open the ink sacs one by one. Anxiety arises from having all paths, and thus no path, open before you. A colony of ants behaves like a single organism. Word order is an elusive presence, a residual signal. Dog, tonguing pool of water. Dramatic increase in neuron firing has been recorded. Physical withdrawal symptoms have triggered overstimulation of the autonomic nervous system. The enamel plaque itemised a wholesaler in snakeskin, struck off, a taxidermist, and a qualified Gauleiter. In order to draw a boundary, one has to operate on both sides of this threshold. Such an individual must be considered unfortunate. The witness added that she did not believe she had been conversing with a particularly noteworthy spirit. Silver point, that's right, on paper prepared with a coating of powdered bone, creating a fine indelible line composed of metal fragments. I remember your face, but never a name. To be removed. A skeletal frame into which compartments are fitted, one fly-blown mirror and a moth-eaten silk partition, so named from the bell shape of early prototypes. It was some occasion, this. Remote sulphur mine, a cabin in the forest, the bloody hair-matted mall, an abandoned sawmill, makeshift and ramshackle. A chain of logs courses slowly downriver, grinding at the pack ice. The chorus shrieks while heaving at the capstan. As in all acts of translation, an erosion is already taking place. A pyre of timber is stacked for the incineration. From one perspective, this is an archive of neurological disaster. He justifies himself by arguing that any error is an achievement in itself. Part of the alchemy is the sudden shift in key, whereby impulses received at synapses are transmitted along the branched extension of a nerve. How would I have felt if this had happened to me? You're not sure whether you're reading or being written. He scrambles through the cobbled streets. All other sensations are shocked out of existence. The dynamic of crisis-catharsis is repeated throughout, a spiral or vortex, a circular pattern of currents in an ocean trench. Interesting, futile. I set out at a loss. It was a Thursday, that constant hissing in my ear. We were limited to things. The crux here lies in the steadfast refusal to take place. Origin is misuse. A subatomic particle has no integrity, is, quote, incorrigible. I'm here following the statistical description given by the witness. In a shop window have been placed a battered musical instrument, one bag of ash, a pack of dog-eared taro, a volcano-shaped lump of molten plastic, dayglow, string and wire, along with fuses and electric triggers of unspecified use. However, I am refusing to make any decisions today. The disease resulting from these acts was summoned. Grandiloquent names have been timetabled. You're quite catastrophic, etc. A colourless material comprises the living part of any cell. The psychiatric report confirmed the subject's adamantine fragility. There was no going back. Research indicates that some organisms may retain memory within bodily tissue. I thought your moniker sounded familiar. Spectators gambled on the outcome. It's funny you should ask that question, he said, scalpel in clenched fist. The novel is set around two people who share a tragic past. A track of scar tissue runs the length of her sternum. Her entrance into the room mirrored a dream as several nights before. Aviator goggles, flecks of foam rimming the lips, the raised pistol, a white secretion oozing from her vagina, the supermarket trolley abandoned to an oily canal. The judge affirmed that her statement claiming the defendant had once toiled as an assassin would have to be taken into consideration. I used to have my own bell. Someone stole it. It has become apparent that light consists of energy quanta called photons, which behave somewhat like waves and somewhat like particles, but nonetheless it is very quiet today hereabouts. When the location of the seizures is pinpointed, any affected organs will be removed and destroyed. Such is the agony of foreknowledge when combined with an inability to alter the future. Crisis apparitions. What time are you leaving? Catachresis is incorrect usage of a word, its function indeterminate, a tool or agent blindly devoted to an adversary's destruction. Literally, a soul of mud, atrophy of the muscles, a tongue in the larval state, gill flaps twitching. See, he's already working within a tripartite structure. Skin feels amphibian to the abdomen. Same impression. Ground has been lost. Wearing the mutinous cockade today would not be savvy, could even prove fatal. Overawed by such assaults as these, the envoys resigned en masse. Stale bread, smooth stones, and a circuit board have been crammed into my pockets. Contraction is a term used to explain the doctoring that began. I must forewarn you. My circus training has been rigorous. I reach out and touch, connect, and the voltmeter twitches. I recall this morning the leg of a spider afloat in the communal shower. By the summer there was hardship and the threat of disaster. But the prolonged absence of a thing unspecified persists. That mound we're passing was long ago a hill fort, a natural temple and omphalos. Its position led people down the dorsal spine and hogback of the south. I can barely cope with these infinite varieties of loss. Disembodied voice, a brace of parental units. A feeling of vulnerability lingers. For months now I've been trading on the orbital. Mouths on stalks, dowels in quiver. The streets are about so wide. Parts hands to demonstrate. Invertebrates, there may be up to 4 chambers with 2 atria and 2 ventricles, a lung of clay, let the dry land appear, etc. The completed shape is a trapezoid, a vast rectangle with sloping upper edge. Clouds descend to fill the vacuum. Sky full of smoke, water falling in droplets as creeping snails crush underfoot. There was once a machine, he claims, that could manufacture flammable gas by splitting up the hydrogen and oxygen into precisely required parts. Now he says he has gangrene and cysts all over his torso. I have an exposed vertebra at the top of my spine, a gleaming white nub that signals neglect. We are busy comparing atrocities, irredeemable in our virtue. Acid rain sanitizes the surface. Apologies are withheld. I'm so excited about nothing. Shell-toothed. Lip split, itchy phantom limb. In my spare time, I am dedicated to inertia. In my spare time, I am digging a cellar beneath the compound, a storage unit for stockpiled quicklime and nerve agent. Informal social gatherings have been disfigured by ritualized crawling. The whole industry has collapsed. I'm about in the middle of a life sentence. He then conveyed in a whisper the exact moment when our termination was to take place. In the midst of this schism in the concert of opinion, to hear his simple language was a blessing. Forbidden to talk for a few minutes, I can finally grasp what we're dealing with. A crust is forming. She took a deep breath and let it out. Her eyes opened for the first time in months. Those who refused to join the Exodus have been living dormant under the ground since the last ice age. A name from history has been given to the inner circle, especially the 5 unpopulars. Navigation by means of maritime errancies has led us to some deserted islet. The roof slates have developed a resistant film of livid green lichen. Peat burns in the hearth, filling the interior of the hovel with acrid smoke that stings the eyes and settles on the tongue. One man fell into a deep sleep and suffered a vision. Radical reflection must go further back and seize this theme, within the horizon which grants it significance. Informed of his years of hermitage, it was agreed the envoy should come in person and tell the delegates of his discovery. He gazed at my palm for a few moments before raising his eyes and asking what happened on that winter day in 77. It was his custom to walk about unarmed, inspecting the excavations, ecstatic with the glory of sunset from the battlements. I schlepped back to the compound with all the apparatus he had requested. None of these disparate objects made sense in terms of defence. I hope he's not manning the cryptograph when a real war descends. He reported that he'd seen a huge wheel turning in the sky, and within the wheel was another wheel, and so on. I have inherited the magnetized corpse of an abandoned empire.